Right.
So kind of anything.
And here.
I mean, I'm not trying to get stuff if you got it while you're there, that's one thing.
Right,
We
right, exactly. Not
can't have anybody
beforehand.
happen before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not that I want anyone to get it while we're there either, but
Right,
I need
right.
to have it actually happen.
Yeah. I don't blame her. I'd be feeling the same way too.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, guys. You guys ready?
We're ready as we'll ever be.
Bet more ready than me. I'll call the meeting, the Northwood School Board meeting to order at 6:35. This is for November 29th, 2021. And I'll do it with a roll call. This is Brian Winslow
Jen Fry. Sarah Carey.
Amanda Roy?
and from the SAU.
Nate Byrne,
And are we recording?
we are, I can double check to make sure it says it's live, but we should be.
I see it up in the corner. It looks like it.
Yes, as we get a close up of me going right into the street.
Okay, great. And I think we have Miss Trudeau's taking notes.
She will be.
Okay, she will be, so we'll just make sure we're clear, so when she watches the video.
Or Miss Trudeau, or actually it might be
Miss Trap.
Miss Trap stuff for the rest of this month.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We'll call pledge. You do have a flag down here.
Yeah.
And Sarah, do you mind leading us through the pledge?
Sure.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a special meeting, but if anybody has a need for an agenda adjustment. Do that. Okay, and then we will have some non-public things, but we can probably do that at the end. Contracts and things, but we'll talk about that. Opening public comment, would either of you like to address the board?
I am here just to observe and except been on the budget committee for 3 years now, and I have never attended a school board meeting myself. So here I am. I want to find out what you guys up to. What are you guys doing?
Good, awesome. Well,
Great.
we're glad that you're
I mean,
here
Brian
again.
always does a nice job explaining to us, but it's like you gotta put up or shut up. So
I like that attitude. I'm glad you're here. Steve.
I'm a taxpayer, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids in the system, in the school system, but I'm a taxpayer.
Mhm.
And getting more and more involved. I want to find what's going on.
Ginger, do you
I'm
have
good.
anything? Okay, any board member?
No.
Okay, so close public comment. And we just have new business. We have our budget review and then our warrants review. So we'll start with budget and I'll just have you.
Take the lead?
Take it away.
Okay, so if it's okay with you, I actually wound up printing 2 X's. I can hand them to our audience.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
So they have something to follow along with. While I say follow along, keep in mind this is a draft and that I'm going to be going quick because as the board has seen this multiple times, what I'm going to try to do is just go over the changes. I did not create extras or make copies of the additional thing that I have here, this handout. This is for the board. What I wanted to do with the board real quickly is if you were to take the changes to the draft budget since 11/22/21, that's this sheet here. I can go over the major savings. I would like to note before I get started, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says additional items to be determined, decided,
Mhm.
if you could please cross off the first one for the pre-purchase of iPads. You did decide that.
Mhm.
But in my haste to get all this printed out for today, I didn't have a chance to remove that when I made the other revisions. So what you'll see once you look at this is the only thing that I've highlighted in this are the additional changes for savings above and beyond what we had discussed or what we had discussed. So if you look, I did add the additional 20 iPads and the video production equipment to be paid out of surplus. So that was an additional 8,200 removed from the budget for savings, totaling your pre-purchases to $104,374. That was originally in the budget for things needed and items requested. but we were able to look at surplus and ESSER, a combination of surplus and ESSER funds to try to offset the budget increase that was caused by going to a single district. Additional changes resulting in savings. I did highlight 3 additional lines. We have the reduction in the truancy officer, as we had talked about, a lower cost. I also wanted to highlight the fact that now the preschool teachers have told us what school they would like to be a part of, as they had, we talked to them, which one do you feel you might want to go to? Because we wanted to keep both preschool teachers in, and based on that, I was able to lower the cost of that line of the 1,200 line, as well as the corresponding lines, for a total of $9,081.53. So that came off of the budget.
Does that mean we're getting the cheaper of the two
Yes,
preschool teachers?
yes. The same number of years, just less,
Right.
less degree.
Perfect.
So the other one that we also did was, as I talked to you about it, we combined all the cell phone plans onto one plan. So originally you were paying for 2 plans, and what winds up with 2 plans is you have 2 master phones, and those phones are more expensive and you're paying for more minutes. So we combined the cell phone plans and the data plan all into one for a reduced overall cost. It was more than the SAU cost, but it was combining them was a savings overall. So that was in the local operating budget that was there. We took 2,880 out and just combined it into the school budget.
Man, that's crazy. Like, cost of cell phones, you can save almost $3,000 just by
Yes.
changing the plan like that.
Yeah, we did. We changed.
And we got rid of a couple of lines too, right?
We got
So-
rid of 2 lines. We looked at the usage of minutes, and we reduced the minutes they still have the data, which is really what they meant to be, but we took the lowest amount of minutes possible,
Okay.
and then separated those between the phones, so that we would still have them. They were there if required and needed, but it was a reduction. So bringing that down to one master plan, it was a savings overall. So it was a savings out of that line. The SAU cost went up slightly by 500, but it was still a savings. So from your previous budget, you're looking at an approximate savings of these lines. That's everything that you're looking at of trying to save throughout the lines. Still to be decided, as we talked about, was the potential of using your capital reserve fund to offset some of these, some of the increase of the single district. If you were to offset with 3 students, you'd be offsetting using capital reserve, and you would use an estimated $55,455.72. That would come off of the budget. You would use your capital reserve. It's in the budget. It would just be offset with a revenue out of that line.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other part that we discussed is ESSER does allow you to use funds out of the lines to maintain district staffing. I would tell you to utilize that sparingly, because your ESSER has to last you a certain number of years with no end in sight with what's going on with COVID. We don't know some of the other costs that could come up. So you could utilize it. I wouldn't fund a position completely out of it, but I would say that if you were to take X amount of dollars and know that you're going to put it in next year, it would also help to offset that one-time spike of going from a 2 district to a single district, just like you saw when you went from a 3 to a 2. There's a cost there. So other multiple lines have been adjusted in your budget due to secretary assignments and admin salaries that we discussed at our previous meeting. So when I say your secretary salaries, when we go into here, one of the things that we looked at was that, I'm sorry, there was another highlight in here, an additional $4,000 savings on your student service admin stipend. The reason I was able to reduce that for an additional $4,000, I think it was supposed to be that was highlighting, not the truancy officer. I'm trying to get that. The reason that was able to be looked at was your current special ed administrative assistant doesn't work year round and only is working 7 hours. Your new receptionist will be, your special ed administrative assistant will be working 7.5 into 261. So you'll see an increase in this budget under that line, but under special ed, you'll see that line that goes up, but you're going to see a decrease under your regular ed salary because your current special ed administrative assistant also work part-time in your office. So in order to offset that we increased Ms. Trito, one of your other administrative assistants, to 0.5 hours per day to offset all that. all that's in this budget, and the lines will be highlighted to go through. So if we were to start in your budget, from what I presented last time to this time, you can go all the way to page 6 before you see your first change. Page 6, you'll see a small highlight on your, a darker highlight, which tells you that's the end of your regular education total of 1,100, which was an increase of $193,035.60, or 3.2% in your budget. Then if you go down 2 lines, you'll see your special ed teacher salaries. That was a decrease from your previous budget that I presented to you, and that's because of identifying which preschool teacher was going to be assigned to Northwood. Okay, so if you scroll down a little further, you will see, or look down a little, I gotta stop saying scroll on the computer. If you look down a little further to the 01-1200 51-10-003, you'll see a large increase from the previous year. That again is only because we're taking that person, and now that you're a single district, and saying that that person's going to be fully your special ed secretary now, your administrative assistant. No more sharing a role. It's because you currently had a full-time person here and you had one at the school. Having just a school, you're going to need someone to fill up all the roles that were also done here at the SAU. So that's why that is an increase. It's not a true $12,000 increase, as it's listed $12,800 increase, because that other person, it's just removing it out of the regular ed lines. So you'll see that when we get into the regular ed lines. If you turn to page 7, you will see that your 1,200 line, the 4th one down, was reduced to 1,000 from, we had originally thought 5,000 would need to be an appropriate stipend, but that's before we really looked at all the number of hours that were added to the schedule and really designated to the special ed numbers now. So the stipend didn't need to be there as much as it had in the past. That's the only other change on page 7. So page 8 lists off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 changes. They're all highlighted for you. Again, I'm going to remind you not to get too used to this. This is a lot of extra PDF work to get these highlighted. So in the final budget, you won't see all these highlight parts, but this is something I went through to make it easier to present. All of those lines are adjusted solely because of your staffing and your staffing going from some regular ed to all special ed for your secretary, as well as the cost of your preschool teacher changing for the lower salary. So when you look at your dental insurance, life insurance, disability, and health insurance, those all went up because now that employee is all under special ed, all under your 1200s, your special ed administrative assistant. The corresponding retirement and line also went up because of that. FICA did go up as well because of that, but when you look at your certified retirement, that went down from your, on page 8, that went down from your previous, because that's the decrease due to your new special ed, the assignment of your preschool teacher. That's a lot of changes. Any questions in those?
Okay, you guys, any questions?
Okay. So if you scroll, if you flip through the pages, there were no page changes in page 10 or 11 from the previous presentation. That brings you to page number 12, where you'll see that your proposed budget for special ed now is $3,266,105.74 for a difference of $261,407.52, or an increase of 8.7%. One of the things you have to keep in mind in there, this now also includes the services that you're getting out of your out of your SAU. Your director of student service is now embedded into your school budget. It is listed as a separate area, as it should be, but that is under your 1,200 lines. So that's why. So you do see an increase, and you also saw an increase in your student placements. So that's the total there. If your next total is your Medicaid total of the 1299s, that function, no change in that. If you go to page 13, you see your function total of co-curricular, no change in that since the previous presentation. It's up to the board whether you would like me to list off all the numbers or just let you know that there are no changes. when
No,
we
I
talk.
think going by section, we just, we went
Absolutely.
over this a week ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're at a point where we're with it.
Okay, so on page 14, you do see 3 total functions there, but no changes were made to anything on page 14. Page 15, no changes to page 15. Page 16, no changes since the previous presentation. You will see 1 function total on there. Page 17 has no changes on it, but you will see 2 function totals on those.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, of
The
course.
guidance total went up substantially.
That
Can
is
you
due
help
to
me?
track.
Mhm. Okay.
So and also insurance.
Mhm.
Remember, the insurance change hit you,
Right.
but the track change was one of the reasons that the guidance did go up.
Okay.
It was really a track change. So what happens, and so I explained for everyone, is when you're down to 2 people and there's a track change, you would normally see about a 3% or 2% for their steps.
Mhm.
But when you have a track change, which means they finish some additional college and degrees and the change, and you only have 2 people in that line, it changes more dramatically
Mhm.
with that.
Perfect.
Okay. So you're on page 17, you have your nurse total and your contracted services total. No changes on page 17 other than you see those functions. On page 18, you have your functions of speech and physical therapy / occupational therapy. No changes, but your totals are there. Just keep in mind, the reason you're seeing zeros all before that, that was all based out of SAU. Now it's, or the preschool combined. And last year you had made the important decision to bring that person on as your employee solely through Northwood. Now this is the first year of seeing all those numbers. There isn't an increase as much as it's just now it's in your lines. So that brings us to page 19, and this is improvement of instruction total. Is on this line. That one was decreased because we were able to do some pre-purchasing as we discussed, but no changes. Page 20 saw no changes. It does have your curriculum director total in here. Page 21 does have a change. This change only comes in the form of a note where I mention that it also includes your preschool teacher now. So you have your staff development workshop for teachers. We didn't increase it by a small portion, but that's just because it also included your preschool teacher. And your OT would also be considered in that, but I just put preschool in there for now. So if you go finish, no other changes on page 21. That brings us to 22 with no changes and only 1 function total in there. Page 23, there were no changes. Page 24 is your tech replacement of equipment. I left the note in there for now, just so you could see, but I removed the budget. So I'll remove the note, but I wanted to make sure it was very transparent that we took $1, we moved it down to $1, and all those lines will be coming out of your surplus. So I just left that note for now, so you could see why it was going down. It was 8,400. We brought it all the way down to $1. Okay, so that note will be out when we send this over to the budget committee overall. So I'll be removing that note. On page 25, saw no changes. Page 26 saw no changes. Page 27 at the top shows you the Office of Superintendent Services, which is a decrease of 46%. When you're looking at that decrease, it's just based on everything from the SAU was included under that line for your district assessment, and that's no longer needed. Now you need to break it out for the employee purposes. So on page 27, you're going to start to see some of these changes. What I want to keep in mind, or want you to keep in mind, until we can find a better way to do this, it looks like your principal and assistant principal are getting much larger raises than they were, but that's because your budgeting their vacation buyout days in case they use them. If they don't use them and they use their vacation, the number's lower. But what I'd like to do is see a vacation buyout line put in, and I have to figure out how we would do that moving down. But for the meantime, we had to budget those in, and that got spread out through FICA. So it looks like their salary is higher than it is, but that just incorporates any of those vacation buyouts in case they use them.
Okay, or do you think you'll be able to work with Dwayne or whoever to get a vacation buyout line in there?
I could do that. And that would just be, that's always an estimate. You're planning for if they took all of them.
Yeah,
So the way you've always done it is to have it in that line. So I didn't want to confuse it too much, but yeah, I could try to get that. And it wouldn't change the bottom line budget. It would just separate.
the only thing I'm concerned about is FICA, but if
It's FICA's already combined
Is it gonna
all FICA.
track?
Yep, FICA tracks right through anyway. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I'll explain that. And that was Mr. Ford's recommendation. He feels as though we have way too many lines to go through, and we should be condensing more of these lines.
I mean, either way, however we budget for it, if it won't change FICA at all, and it doesn't affect the bottom line, then I'm fine with it that way, other than that, it's it looks like a higher salary than it is. But
Right. It won't change FICA. That your FICA, so we'll get to that part. Your secretarial wages, as I had said before, you see an $8,000 decrease. It's not truly an $8,000 decrease. What's happening is your special ed salary is now in the correct spot. Well, it's being reassigned so that you have a full-time special ed administrative assistant, because you couldn't do that part-time and you couldn't do it without having someone in the summer. So that was an adjustment there. And then your health insurance and non-certification, that was an adjustment too, because now that salary is in. So those are the changes on 27. So when you look at page 28, you will see where it talks about your FICA. So FICA includes, so you'll see dental insurance was adjusted, life insurance, disability insurance, and FICA. Here, if you look at FICA, it does say buyouts are already included in there. So the teachers who are getting not teachers, the principals and principal and assistant principal, if they do use their vacation time, it would come out of that FICA. The FICA that's attached to that salary goes there.
okay.
Okay. Your retirement for both those lines were adjusted based on salaries. So you see those, your retirement for non-cert and certified are highlighted because those were adjusted correctly. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll see telephone. What it says is it now includes preschool lines, and cell phones have been moved to the SAU plan to reduce costs. So you'll see that while we've added the preschool lines in there just to make sure they were covered, we were able to reduce the cell phone portion. And then at the bottom of your office of principal total, you'll see that it only actually went up 1.77% with everything else included. On page 30, you'll see that the SAU telephones increased from where they were the previous time, because now it has all the district cell phones included. So that price went up by $500. It was $1,900 now, or $600. It was $1,900 now. It's budgeted at $25. If you scroll to look at page 31, no additional changes on page 31. No changes on page 32. On page 33, you do see the building and maintenance total, but no changes. Grounds maintenance total, no changes. On page 34, you see 3 different totalings of your contracted fire, state mandated water, and regular transportation, no changes. On page 35, you will see 5 different function totals, but no changes to any of those. Page 36. You'll see the food service total and then your grand total. So what I want to share with the board here is I did speak with Mr. Winslow, just to give him a heads up, that in speaking with Dwayne, he had originally thought that we could keep the 1,900, the other revenue service line, right in the budget. And his fear was he didn't want to put that all the way through to DRA and have them reject it. And so, even though we had done something very similar last year. So he said what he would rather do is see us do the grand total with everything there and then show the offset that you would do. So I did a little bit of PDF editing and taking my skill set to try to make that work. And what we did was, what you'll see is your grand total hasn't changed from what it was before, but what we had in there was the 1900 lines, which showed all your revenue that isn't from the state, just your revenue based on your district revenue because of a tuition student, because of the all ed program where other districts use, and because of your preschool. Those revenues had always been offset in your budget and shown that in your SAU budget. It would show that your indirect costs were an offset to your expenditures. Your preschool was an offset to your step-by-step budget. Well, looking at this now, your all ed revenue would be able to be offset to your overall budget because you do budget for those purposes, and your NEC revenue, because what you're currently doing is you have a student from another district using your NEC program. So you're paying for your NEC program and you pay for the paraprofessional. You're paying for them, but then you bill that service out to the district and to the district using the service, and that comes in as revenue. We did that. The first year it came in as unanticipated because it was after the budgeting cycle that we did it. The second year we knew it was coming. We brought it in as anticipated. And this year the plan is that that would continue. So that would come in as a revenue, a known revenue, so you can offset it. So when you look back at the total amounts, I'm sorry, there's a typo in here, but it should be 149,300. I must have keystroke 3 zeros in there. It doesn't change the bottom number. It just changes the top number. When you bring that in, what it winds up being is your with the offset of the money, it brings in, you can see if you take the 300 off, that's where you get that number. It brings your grand adjusted total, and I'm going to double check that before we're done here. But it brings your adjusted total back down to that $12,683,549.56, or the dollar difference of $567,288.95 for your increase of what will be a 4.68% increase to the budget. So that's actually the money that is going to change your tax rate. The previous number of the 5.91 does nothing to your tax rate because it hasn't had the revenue offset that you'll be bringing in. So your tax rate revenue is set off of that lower number. This is where I had said, this is why the board has some decisions if they want to look at also looking at the tuition line to offset. That could be a decision later. It doesn't have to be decided now. You could, for the budget committee, this is not something that has to be decided now, any of those others. For the budget committee purposes, you can bring this number right here forward. It's, and we would set that all up as revenue. Okay, I do want to check one number real quick.
You bottom line numbers, correct?
I thought so. It was a typo. I was like, because this was all typed in by hand, that all that yellow, that's the editing. So I was like, I was pretty sure that I did that correct.
And when Nate called me when I was leaving to work today, and he was all day with auditors running reports because we don't have a BA during regular hours. So he was the BA for the day, and then he was like, okay, they're gone at 4, so I'll get them. So it's been Nate's day today.
Yes. And I tried to put this together, so I worked on this so that I could have it for you for highlighted and all the changes today. So forgive that one typo, sorry.
Thank you.
But the numbers are correct, the overall numbers. So that's where we sit right now with the budget. If there's nothing, that's now it's really up to the board to decide if there's anything else you would like to look at.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Anybody else? And before I just talk to everybody.
I was just thinking about going back to that principal salary and assistant salary, assistant principal salary, and trying to figure out how to show that is not a massive raise that we're giving each of them. The account notes go with the budget that we give to the budget committee and everybody else,
So
but
you can put the salary in that.
I'm wondering if you, instead of creating extra lines, if we just in the note were to say something like, for this
Includes,
year, we included vacation, so that it would show that it wasn't part of what normally is in there.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I did put in that it includes their 4 buyouts, but and 7, but what I can do is I can list the price of those days.
And you might say that it's new for this year or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
It is new for this year for
Yep.
your assistant principal. Your principals had it in,
Mhm.
and we didn't increase the days. It used to say budget for 7 days. It's really, 10 days. It really is budget for 7.
Mhm.
So I can do that.
I was just thinking of a way to make your life easier instead of adding lines, if we just in that note mention that that's a new cost.
Yeah, I mean, we do it that way or add a line. What do you, I mean,
I think it's fine to include it in the notes, then it's just explained, what the increase is for.
Do you
Yeah.
see a benefit to adding a line?
and
Only
the,
because we're
the
all
only
new.
thing, I mean, I think as long as the note is there, it's clear, it's fine. The only thing would think if we run an expense report, like, midway next year and somebody requests a copy of that, it'll just look like the salary is 105 when it's really not, which doesn't, and I don't think it matters except for if people are like, shopping around for jobs or whatever, I don't,
That makes sense.
if then
Mhm.
it's just, that's the only thing is if people just do a quick look up, like if the DOE is like listing principal salaries, they're probably just gonna get 105 when
Right.
that's not actually. the
We
salary.
we present that to them.
Okay,
We give the salary to the DOE, so it would go in as the salary without the buyout days.
so it's, I mean, and this is really just a plan for how we spend money, I mean, either way, it's okay. I think it's,
I don't know that it will be that hard to create one line. One of the things that I did when I took over creating the budget is anytime I add anything addition to this, I do it. So our budgeting software is really great. It doesn't print it out this way. You can't do anything else, but in a single line for, I'm going to use a bigger line, that the 1200 line, one of the 1200 lines where you have teachers. So we had the normal 1200 line, and then we added the preschool. We added I separate each line, and it just adds it all together for me.
Right.
So in this, those salary, the buyout days are already separated.
Mhm.
So all I would do is create one line, take those 2 numbers out, and it's no more math.
Okay.
Everything else has already been calculated. So whenever, if we were to add multiple new things to a budget, from this point on, I put it in on a separate subline under it, and then it tallies it under that line for us. And that's all that matters. That the budget software does that for us.
Maybe
So-
it makes sense then to just
Yeah,
add the separate line now.
that's what I'm thinking.
yeah, then there's absolutely no confusion.
Exactly.
And the other way, it's like,
And moving forward, it could, it'll already be there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And it does help when you have the ups and downs of salaries. Well, why is it lower this year than it was, or, than last
Right.
year? Well, they didn't use their vacation buyout. They couldn't.
Right.
This year they did. So, and we didn't give a pay cut, because you see that on the actuals. Oh, the other thing I forgot, I was so excited, I forgot to tell you. If you look at the top, I changed it. The top now has 1920 actuals and 2021 actuals. Your old budgets didn't have that. That was a lot of work to get the new actuals in there. So your new budget now has last year's actuals.
Mhm.
awesome.
Okay,
Great.
so I slid it over like it should be, because it was
That's right.
2 years, so that's all done. I was so excited to talk about that, but making that statement of ups and downs, you could see that in your old principal salary. I think it doesn't show here, but it did in the 18-19, where it was high, then it was low, then it went back up.
Mhm.
And that's not accurate, because the same principle, we didn't do a pay cut, it's just the using a
We were
base.
putting more than salary into salary, so
Mhm.
that's why. that happened,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I will work with Dwayne to get that in, and that won't change whatever number you use, you want to bring forward. I'll just try to get that in tomorrow before we send this off, because
Yeah,
I have 2 days to finalize this and get on the other revisions so that we can get it mailed in time.
Mhm.
okay, so there's that. Is
Mhm.
there?
Nope, that was my only thing I wanted to go back and revisit.
Okay, the decision we brought up a week ago and then wanted to wait on was the tuition using the capital reserve fund for tuition students. I mean, ideally, if we're going, if I should say, if we decided to do that at some point, we don't have to do that now.
No, you can do that, you could do that.
I mean, we could do that, like, I mean, the idea is that if people move in, and then they go over budget, then we can pull from that. So we could choose to do that. We know the language is just to offset tuition, so it's not restricted to, moving in, but if we intended to do that, it'd be good to let the community know that we intend to do that. So personally, I mean, how do you guys feel about it? I'll keep talking because personally, I don't really want to withdraw from that at this time. I'd like to save it as a reserve. I'd like to show in our budget, the actual amount. It's, I think like the other ones where we're using ESSER to offset, to retain staff, I think that I feel more comfortable with. This one, I just feel like it's just setting up cliff funding, that I don't know, it's a tool that we can use if we need to, if we have more students move in, or if we're, in another situation, but I don't want to plan to use it unless we have to, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm back and forth on it, but I agree. I mean, I think we need to be as real as possible about what our costs are, instead of having another or a sizable jump next year. So.
Right. Well, yes, you would have a sizable jump even though it's in the budget. So you're right. That's yet another.
Because
increase.
it would look as revenue, right? It would come off the bottom line. So.
It will, you're in that line, you're in that budget line though with the students, so it wouldn't be sizable unless there was a big number changing your students. You're not, because you're taking out of the capital reserve, so it would lower your overall need to appropriate those funds, but that number is already in there. It's not like we've removed it. It would come in, and depending on your class size and everything, you're right, it could go back up. But you've also seen years where the first year or second year I was here, you had a very small 8th grade class going up.
Yeah.
And you had a large 12th grade class leaving. So you had had a very large savings in that line, and you had done your fiscal responsibility, and you were, instead of increasing anywhere else to see that it was a neutral line across anywhere else, you just got rid of it.
Yeah.
And that's a smart move. So you could easily save that. It was just when we were talking about how do we reduce it, that was one of the only ways I could see further reduction.
No, I like that they were discussing it. I mean, because we're trying to reduce costs as much as we can, but that I feel like that's one I don't want to do personally. So. The other one, the partial funding to maintain existing staff, I do feel more comfortable with that because this is these are ESSER funds. These are coming from the federal funds, and they're intended to retain staff. And this is, we're taking due to other towns around us, where we're taking on more than more. I should just stop tending BPC. We're looking at a big increase, and because of we're downshifting in our SAU, and I feel more comfortable using ESSER funds to level that out a little bit. It will either create cliff funding where there'll be an increase in those lines next year, or we'll find revenue from somewhere else, or we have to cut down on those positions that we offset with this next year. But that, I think, also kind of plays into the thought of we need to make sure that we're doing this transition well for our community, and then we can look at where we can cut if we need to going forward, which we would do every budget cycle anyways. But I feel more comfortable using the ESSER funds to soften this blow a little bit for this particular time.
So I wouldn't look at it as cliff funding, because you wouldn't fund the entire position out of it. What I would tell you to do is fund a portion and call it stepping. You're going to step to that full acquisition of being into a single district. It's semi-cliff, but cliff funding is very scary because it just means like all of a sudden it's there. But if you're not taking the whole position and you're going to do a portion of that position, in the following year, you absorb that portion into your local operating budget, which is usually what you do when you decide to add a position through a grant, slowly bring it into your regular budget. It's a step. So where you had you lost 54% of your SAU revenue with Nottingham leaving, it did not result in you being able to cut 54% of your costs.
Right.
So this year, if you were to say use 20% of the cost out of that to make sure, now you've only had to come up with 30%, and then the following year you come up with 20. So it's still stepping, knowing that it's going to slightly increase the following year, but it's not 1 year sees the entire increase.
Yeah.
it looks like too, what we were talking about enrollment, we have 48 12th graders who will graduate and 44 incoming, so almost a wash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
that I
looked at
think
that
is, is already reflected in our,
Yes.
Yeah.
so,
And you do have the largest kindergarten class since Miss Young's been a part of your group and since I've been here.
currently,
Coming
yeah.
up next.
Oh, coming up
And
next
yeah,
year.
Yeah, you have-
Coming up next year.
coming up next year, you have the largest class you've seen.
Okay,
So what I think you're gonna see is the numbers that our students decreased over the last 2 years are gonna slowly start, those students are gonna slowly start to come back.
yeah.
And then you also have additional students coming in.
And I think I know we're just jumping around this, but we budgeted for the NASDAQ study
Yes.
and so that's hopefully going to help project enrollment numbers and trends in the area.
They have the information now, or they should be, we should be getting that report back from them soon,
Okay,
usually
That's
around
just-
December, and then I'd be able to present that to you, so.
good, yeah,
I
good.
guess that maybe I missed the information for the tuition for 3 CBNC students, but like, do we only have like so many like the seats for Northwood going to Co-Brown? Like, I guess I don't understand where that
No,
comes from.
well,
We,
we every year, I mean, our graduates primarily, occasionally, some of our students go to another school. Most of them go, assuming all of our 8th graders go to Co-Brown. Then they charge us a tuition. We have a contract with them that they accept our students. So if one year we get 10, they charge us tuition for those 10 students as freshmen. The next year, if we have 20, I'm just making up numbers, obviously. So
If there's more than that, right,
yeah,
for-
and then every year the seniors, they graduate, we don't get charged tuition for them. The incoming freshmen, we get charged them. So the numbers adjust a little bit. We have a capital reserve fund, which has about $175,000 in it, which is to help with tuition. And the idea is if we pass a budget in March and then in June, a bunch of people move into the Northwood, they become our students. And if they're going to go Brown, they're charged at this point, 18,000 something for tuition.
So, and to give a real clear of that, when you have 3 students move into your K-8 school, they get separated between the grades, and the cost per student isn't as impactful. Doesn't usually mean, unless all those students move into one grade, chances are you're not going to need to hire a new teacher. What you've done with your capital reserve is you set it up for 10 students to go to Co-Brown. So if 10 students move into Co-Brown through 4 grades, again, you probably wouldn't need to hire a new teacher at Co-Brown, but because you pay tuition of 18,000, that's something you won't be able to absorb. So you have to budget for those students, and you've done so with that capital reserve. It's like a safety net so that you have one for your special ed student out of districts as well.
Okay. So I guess, okay, back to the bottom line here, the SAU office using ESSER funds. Do you guys feel that you want to step that way and use ESSER funds to offset this year? And if so, how much do we want to offset by?
Yeah, I guess that was gonna be my question. What would the amount be that we would be thinking of using?
I think we talked about 100,000 last time, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's there.
Assistant
And
staff, who do you need to, like, I guess, who needs to be looking at maintained, you know what I mean?
so you can separate it between whatever you would like. You could do some for your superintendent, you can do some because it's district staff. And what's really the impactful thing isn't you're not looking that you're going to lose your staff in your K-8 building, but due to this transition, you could lose some of the staff in your SAU if you're not able to retain them and be able to keep them whole for their positions. So you could use it for your administrative assistant. So your superintendent's administrative assistant, you could utilize it for bookkeeping, you can utilize it for your superintendent, you can utilize it for your director of student services, the people who are currently in your building now that you run the risk of having to downsize or remove. And really look at what that might play out to be. Again, it's not a decision you need to make right now. You could look at what are the impacts if you don't. You could discuss it fully with the budget committee, say these are the things we're looking at and do it. But if the board thinks that's the way to go, I can tell you what it does to your budget by reducing that amount.
Okay.
That's a number I can give you by going into the system right now. So whatever amount you would like, I can tell you what it would do.
So, I mean, if our bottom adjusted grand total is 12,683,000, and we do 100,000, it'd be 12,583,000. So the percentage wise would probably, I don't know what that would come out to. But
It'd be quite high. I mean, like, it'd be a large reduction.
Yeah.
Let me get into it and I can tell you right now.
Total amount for that ESSER fund that we have that has to go through 2024 is
300 and something thousand. And you haven't touched any of your ESSER 3.
okay.
Keep in mind, 20% has to combat learning loss.
Yeah.
And it will be hard to tie. You can tie it administrative salaries to learning loss because they're your instructional leaders. But you'll also have other learning loss options that
Yeah.
you can use. So
Mm.
that's not a factor.
And the 3 lines that we're going to use ESSER funds from, that's not ESSER 3.
Some of those can be ESSER 3, but you also have monies
remaining
left in
amount?
ESSER 2.
Yeah, okay.
That's why we didn't utilize a lot of your ESSER out of
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Some of us surplus.
So we'd be looking at basically 2 years to spend the ESSER 3 money in.
That's correct.
300,000.
So I'm going to put in I'm just going to put in the round number of 100,000 for now.
Mhm.
And I also put back in the 149,300 just because what I did was I took that out. I have a net zeroing here, so I'm going to put that back in so it shows. So that will bring your grand total to 249,300 out of revenue type sources.
Mhm.
The others we're not including in revenue sources where we take it out of ESSER because you're just removing it straight out. You're not even budgeting for it. You're
Right.
already prepaying for it. These things you're going to be budgeting for.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to go into your report and I'll tell you where I would bring you. I will have you say that Mr. Ford was quite impressed that I had access to this. He goes, no superintendent has worked with us.
You were
have an option.
like,
I
well, I've been
had
the
no
VA for
choice.
3 years,
Yeah.
actually, so
So,
de facto.
yeah, he's like, because when we were sitting together, he's like, wait, what are you doing now? I said, I'm gonna go in and change it for us. Okay. So with that brings, with the additional revenue source of offsetting with ESSER, that would bring you down to 3.86%. Like I said, it was a large jump.
That
I
is
knew it would be.
substantial, yeah.
From 4.68 to 3. And I mean, the budget total is still 5.91, but it's just the taxable portion of the budget. is
Yeah, the
3.86.
taxable portions go down. That's
Mhm.
correct.
Okay.
So to me, I think it makes sense for us to use ESSER funding at around $100,000, just in that, like we're talking about with that step, it just,
Eases it a little bit.
it
the
eases
first
it,
year,
it makes
yeah.
it, it makes it more palatable for the voters. I think that it makes a lot of sense
Yeah,
to
'cause
me.
your overall SAU cost increase was just a little over 200,000. So if you
Right.
were to offset it, then the following year,
Mhm.
you'd go through, and it was a reduction of your SAU budget by over 40%.
Right.
right around 40%, but you can't absorb.
Yeah,
that
now we're
much.
paying 100%, not
Right.
45%.
Right,
Exactly.
so, we were able to reduce around 40% of your SAU costs in general, but that's still over $200,000 increase.
Mhm.
So if you were to offset those salaries to make sure that you stay whole and are able to maintain staffing through
Mhm.
this, then the following year, you would go up again, but it would be a incremental increase versus a
All at
giant
once, yeah.
increase.
Mhm.
Things to consider.
And that's what the ESSER funding is there for. And, looking at the BA position, it's really challenging to find people to work. I mean, now granted, that's because there's this hard stop of June 30th where the BA may not be around, but just in terms of finding employees in general, it's really challenging right now. So I think that if we can maintain what we have,
Yeah, I would,
That's
agree-
for the
yeah,
best.
I would agree with you. There's, especially when it comes to your director of student services,
Mhm,
a very big shortage. That's a critical shortage.
mhm.
One of the things with your superintendent, they don't list a superintendent as a shortage. They list an associate superintendent as shortages, which is a little weird. But the reason they don't list the superintendent as a shortage on the state website isn't because it's not there. It's because you have multiple people who hold the certification that don't want to do the job, as including those who are retired.
Mhm.
All right, well, I would like to show that we're using $100,000 to offset SAU cost and bring our taxable portion down to $12,583,549.56
Mhm.
for 3.86% increase.
Mhm.
I got those numbers.
Do we need to vote on that? Because it's ESSER funding. or
Well,
no?
what we'll do, I think, is just vote
The
on
whole
the whole
budget.
budget.
Okay, perfect.
If you guys are okay with that.
Mhm,
Yeah, and voting on the budget with that motion would include that. That's one of the things that, it's, keep in mind, as I mentioned to you before, no one person can control the ESSER funds. They were very clear on that.
Right.
You're listening to anybody who comes in and speaks. As a board, you're trying to create a program that works. So that's one of the things that comes in play. So when you make that vote, you are
Mhm.
utilizing the funds as they're appropriate.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, from here, you guys know anyways, but it'll go to the budget committee and they make motions, make amendments. The past 3 or 4 years that I've been involved, there hasn't been any changes to the school board budget, but there always could be. So
Mhm.
there have been, a little bit to the select board budget. It's happened. So I will go regardless of what happens there. I'll be voting on behalf of the board at that point. So for this budget that we pass, that's the one I'll be advocating for. So.
Mhm.
Okay, any other? I mean, with that, and then we just look at our warrant articles. So does anybody, anything else for the budget? I feel like we've been through this a number of times and brought it down quite a bit, and
Mhm.
I feel pretty good about it, honestly. So,
I do as well.
okay, I will make a motion to approve the Northwood School District proposed budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year of $12,583,549.59, which represents a 3.86 increase. That is the adjusted grand total. The grand total is $12,832,849.56.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Thank you, guys. All right, and you have all that noted down. Okay. Moving on, the warrant reviews. So we'll vote on these two. And then we can send them off with vote counts at least. I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could have Chrissy here too. She said she couldn't make it tonight. But if they're 4-0 votes or 4, whatever, 3-1, however, whatever we decide to do, probably 4-0.
I'm gonna run up and get my copy of those. It did not print, so I tried to print before you got started. It still didn't print, so I'm hoping it finally printed so that I
Okay.
can write notes as we go.
We'll just start reading through and see if you guys
Yes.
catch any typos or anything like that.
Numbers will need to be included on all of them.
This deliberative session is later than the 3rd of
I
May.
have it as.
I
the
thought,
10th.
yeah, I was gonna say I do too.
Okay.
That's why I
That's
was double
probably why I
checking.
thought it was
Mhm.
later.
I also put it on Friday the 11th for extra fun. Oh,
Is it the snow date?
Oh, that's
No.
probably why I put it in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, good, that's why we're doing
The town's figuring you're not gonna need a snow day because they only vote.
I didn't put it in for either one. Good for me.
So Nate, the first thing we were looking at is just the date of the deliberative. We think it's the 10th of
10th,
February, not the 3rd of February.
Yeah, that's why it's highlighted. It still needs to be changed. I hadn't had a chance to
Mhm.
speak with Mary when she gave it. She had originally done this, so you are right. It's the
Mhm.
10th.
Okay.
Awesome, good. All right, yeah, and then so article, the other ones that are anywhere there's a highlight, that's where we have to change from last year.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess we'll come back to this notice because of depending on how many articles we end up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For the Northwood Elementary School, Tuesday, what day is that going to be, the election day?
It is the 8th.
It is the 8th.
Mhm. That is-
Okay, she might have already changed that one.
Mhm.
So that's good. It'll be at the elementary school. Good. School board, it'll be, right, you two are your positions, if you decide to run, so there'll be 2 positions for 3 years, so that's correct.
Mhm.
I hope you guys decide to run. Yeah, you decide in January, so a little bit of time to like forget about how miserable the budget season is. and
Mm,
No,
think
no
about it.
pressure.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so our number here is the bottom line number, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll have to double check. I think it's what you have to raise and appropriate without revenue.
Without revenue.
Without revenue, okay.
Yeah, because I believe that's what was put in the last time too. I can double check that.
So the 12,800 and
Yeah. I
32,000,
believe so. So, let me just double check something and I should be able to get a better answer on that. Because this is last year, so I can pull up both numbers and see. You're not gonna have a default budget yet. Typically that comes in later.
Mhm.
Ginger, when we are for the town's work, I mean, the school board work session, the budget committee work session, usually we have, I think, these going on, but if we're coming back to Article 2 with a default number, because we don't have that at this point, how was that gonna work for you guys?
We'll still review. I don't see any reason to not review your proposed budget, just as we typically would.
Okay,
Obviously, the sooner we get a default,
yeah,
the better. Because of the questions that were raised at the last budget meeting regarding public input and when we take final votes, we're not going to be taking a firm vote on your bottom line budget any more than we are with the town's bottom line until after the final public hearing.
right. It's like a vote on what number we put to the public hearing kind of vote, and then, so that way, okay,
Now, at the public hearing, I'm required to review the default budget.
yeah. I remember
which
doing
was
that.
Something that I didn't know I had to do until 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I remember 2 years ago, and by reviewing it, we just, did a real quick presentation on this is the number of the default budget, and this is the things that are in the default budget, get in there for 4 reasons, and they could be
Right.
those, and then if there's any questions, but, okay. All right, so, yeah, let's look at some of the other ones. Article 4, so these Article?
3 first. We can remove.
Oh, I skipped right over that. Yeah, so we'll get rid of Article 3. No, it doesn't exist this year, unless you guys want to go through something like that, probably not. Article 4, as it's here, which will be the new Article 3. Raise up to an appropriate $10,000 for the high school tuition capital reserve. I feel like if we're not drawing down from it now, and we're at 175,000 because this passed last year, and the tuition is 183 or 180, I mean 18,000 something. I feel like we're pretty close, and then I don't think we need to do this year. I don't know how you guys feel. The way that the way that this would work is if there's a surplus, then so much money, whatever amount we pick, would go into that fund. Like we could do, 5,000 to get it real close to the 10 students, but
No, I think so. It says the current balance as of September 30th of this year is 163. So is that correct, or is the 175 correct? Only because it's this year's date.
It should be the 175.
Okay.
yeah, it's highlighted to change it,
Yeah.
but it does have September 30th date.
It should be 175. I can get that pulled. I sent it to you already before. I don't have it in front of me. I
Yeah.
can try
No
to.
big deal. No,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. I think if we have 175 and that's going to cover just about 10 students, I think we're in the right spot.
Yeah, it's a little shy of 10 students, but I think
Yeah.
where this is a year that we're seeing an increase, that's one to.
Do we know, like, just on maybe a 5-year average, how many additional Co-Brown students we've seen register as freshmen?
Since I've been a board member, I don't remember drawing down from this fund ever.
Yeah.
So
I
we've
think-
only been trying to bump it up to be about 10 students.
Right, I don't think it's necessary then to ask this year
Yeah.
for that.
I do think when there have been enrollees, and I don't know that it's ever come out as a net, we have a higher tuition, but if we did it, we would have found it in surplus or something.
Right, okay.
This is just a kind of, in case.
Sure.
So, yeah, but you never know. That's just why it's there. Article 5, so this is going to be, yeah, so we won't do. So Article 5 will be Article 3, and this is collective bargaining, Northwood supports.
Yeah, those aren't the numbers. You have those numbers. You'll just have to decide. The TA, because you'll have to put the TA together on that.
Okay. We can probably get this. So I think the last time we had a tentative agreement, and then we were all good with that. And there's a little bit of communication between Penny and I. It seemed like it would go fine. And then the things we wanted to adjust a little bit, it wasn't numbers, it's just the language stuff. She was fine with it. And then we all went away for Thanksgiving, so I haven't heard anymore. So I'll look at where I think we can probably put the numbers in, because whatever the bit that was left, I think we can I think we can put the numbers in there for now, and then
So-
maybe hold off on a vote.
Yeah, so here's what I would tell you is you don't need to vote on any of the warrant articles right now, other than none of them, because you're gonna push forward your budget and let them see what you're doing. Because we don't have tax inputs for it, tax rates for any of these, so you're not a true vote. Your tax rate hasn't been set in Northwood yet. We're waiting on that. Once that's set, then I can give you all the tax rate information. We are moving much faster than we've ever moved before to get this stuff over to the budget committee. With the days that are required and everything. Typically, they don't have the warrant articles until almost the day of the presentation with the final numbers and the tax rate setting.
Budget committee cannot take any action on the warrant articles if there has not been a vote recorded by either the selectmen or the
Okay.
school board. The numbers can, if they need to change because of an update or by putting in the tax rate impact, that can be added as we're going over them, but we can't even go over them if the board hasn't made the determination yeah, they're gonna go forward with a vote.
Okay, so let's look up the numbers here, because we came to a tentative agreement on that. I think we're close. We can get that, and we can, by voting on the article, if things change, we can adjust them after that. So,
Brian, can I interrupt you?
sure.
If this is an employee contract, if memory serves me, you have a later date that has to be available to present to the budget committee.
Okay,
So that can give you some extra time. You could certainly let us know, for instance, that you're finalizing whatever contract it is. And you
Sure.
may end up with another work session after your Saturday anyway. But if memory serves me, I almost think it's the same day as the petition warrant articles, somewhere around the
that's
8th or 9th
what
of
Mr. Burns
January.
said too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You don't have to vote on these right now. On any of them. You could vote on your budget and put that forward, but you do have additional time for the rest of the warrant articles. You could vote on the warrant articles too with the number that you want to place in. This doesn't have your special ed reserve in here either.
Okay,
If you wanted to include special ed money as you had in the past, you do have a decent capital reserve for that as well.
yeah, I think we did. We might, I guess if we didn't use the special ed reserve last year, I thought we did add that at the end, but maybe that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago.
Okay. Okay, we'll come back to what is Article 5, what is now Article 3, that will be coming up. We did, but yeah, we probably want to sign everything with a contract before we officially vote on it. So I think we're close. I mean, I'm sure we could wrap it up like tomorrow. It's just with the holiday and everything. So that, I mean, I guess I would say that by the time we have our work session, I don't know that we'll have another meeting. Though. I don't think we will. So never mind. Article 6. Northwood, Article 4 is defeated. So this is like it won't be Article
It would have been
4.
5, right? Because
Yeah.
it would have to be related to the CBA. So if Article 3 is defeated.
Yeah, so it would be what it was Article. Yeah, because this is from an old one. We didn't have one of these on last year, so this is from a few years ago. So this is if the contract is defeated, so we do one-time special meeting, which I think the way it is, we just need to highlight the number to make sure we get that lined up correctly when we do. All right, let's get Article 2 exactly correct and take a vote on that, because that's one we definitely need to nuance. Our number, is it the grand total or the adjusted grand total?
I could not find that. That's why it said you'd have to wait. I'm trying to get the answer from what we had done before, but I'm not able to see it.
Okay.
So I'm looking right now.
What?
That's the one. The town report doesn't show the school. They separate them.
That's why it's when we physically.
Yeah, I'm sure it's upstairs.
No, sorry. I'm older today than I've ever been, actually. So
So am I.
it's funny how that happens. Sometimes I feel a day or two younger. I'm actually older.
teacher or support? staff?
It's the Nestla contract support staff, so.
I can never remember.
Yeah, we have them on 3-year contracts, so we didn't do one at all last year, which was great. Because last year was not the year to be trying to do a contract among all other things. It was, yeah, pretty, I mean, we're not too many changes, pretty straightforward contract negotiations this year, really smooth, very cooperative, so. And I know we have numbers, but because we haven't actually signed it, it was just a tiny little bit of language still to go back and forth on. But
Well, that's why I said you've got extra time for a contract
yeah,
that we don't have to do immediately. And that can actually be, that might take some time to discuss. Double check the date. I wanna say it's January
Respond to the
because it seems to
policy
creep up
committee.
earlier every year.
Sarah's
Hmm.
gonna come. Oh, thank you.
Yay, me.
yeah.
Great.
I don't need to
You have no
respond
idea
then.
how thrilling it's
Don't you love helping your community?
Sometimes it grows on you after a while. And other times it's like, no.
What was I thinking?
Here's to being here for Christmas vacation. But I have a separate February vacation from my children.
Really? We have a
Oh,
separate-
nice.
That's how our spring break works out. It's so nice.
Ooh, I gotta look at that.
How does that work out?
Oh, wow, okay.
So Jess
I didn't
and
know
I,
that.
Jess and I have the same week, but Jason has the same week
As the kids?
Oh, poor Jason. That's gonna screw you up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gonna mess me up a little bit.
Mm.
Not too much. I'll be able to figure it out. I haven't looked at my calendars yet.
I hope you didn't just vote.
There's a big
I know,
number he
right?
found up there. so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that February, that's happened a couple other times
Has
in
it?
like years past, like every 4 or 5 years or so. that
It's,
happens.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's because they try to do like the last week, but when it's not quite a
full
or like a
week, yeah.
Monday
Yeah.
or something, like the last day of February is a Monday, maybe.
Yeah, it's like the whole first week of March is where it falls out,
Mm.
Yeah.
where it wear off.
Mhm.
Get to work during the week.
Ginger,
Barrington and Northwood's
what
ones
we'll
are the
do is
same.
just have
The vacation week, you mean?
in this
Yeah,
article
Barrington
at
and
this
Northwood are
point,
The same.
Think
We have the same
for
week
the
off.
And
for the
then
default
Christmas and
budget,
New Year.
we'll just have a
No.
a known amount at this point. We'll just do a dash for now, and then we'll fill that in.
Minor details.
Yeah, exactly.
There was not one left in my office from the previous superintendent, and I can't find one in anyone else's office, so
Okay.
I'm looking real quick to see if I can find it in our server, which is what else.
I appreciate you trying to figure that out. Did you pull up a PDF of the town report on your phone? Ginger?
Doesn't
No, I
include
went
the
into
school.
municipal association. I'm looking for the last date to get your
Oh,
contract.
we're raising and appropriating. we're raising and appropriating revenue. It's not all from taxing because of the tax impact, but we won't be able to know the tax impact anyways. But so, I mean, I'm kind of assuming we'll have to put the higher number there.
That's what I thought, but that's,
The last day for the contract is January 11th
Okay,
for collective bargaining. Submission to the union.
I think we'll have it by December 11th.
Yeah, 'cause Tuesday, the 18th is the last day for me to do.
Let's do this because you've been staring at screens all day and
yeah,
unless,
almost there.
unless you know for sure, you're like, you know, you haven't. But what I would suggest is we would vote on the grand total number to put in this language. We take a vote and then it's done. And then we can come back and revise it down if we're allowed to do the adjusted total.
Sounds great.
Okay, so this would then say, I'll read it and maybe you'll find it before I'm done reading it. I'll make a motion to recommend Article 2, which reads, shall the Northwood School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with a warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $12,832,849.56. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall total, and we'll put a dash for now, which will be filled in, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Northwood School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, sections 10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only.
I'll second that.
Well, thank you. All in favor? There we go. 4-0. I'll write that down. So we'll use that number for now. We're both like, I'd say I'm like 90% sure that's the number we have to use anyways. And if not, we can vote on these again. But this way we can get this out to, I mean, they're going to be looking at this budget anyways, which will show the adjusted grand total we discussed tonight. So we're just going to make sure that we can get this out to the budget committee and they can get working on it. The other ones we can get to later, the other warrants as we get final votes and numbers. So I think that pretty much brings it, that's it for new business for tonight. All the other ones we're skipping over. We do have a meeting on December 8th. So yeah, I mean, we will probably even take final votes then, and then at least we'll, even though they won't be working on them, we can share numbers on the December 11th meeting with the budget committee. December 13th is joint board meeting here at 6:30, and then December 22nd. I think right now it's still in the books. I think we're deciding if we're going to need that at the 8th.
What time is the December 11th meeting?
It is from 9 to up to 4. It's up in the
Good
gym.
Lord.
It's in previous years, the school hasn't gone all that time. Since I've been involved, in previous years, it's even been under 2 hours at times, when it goes pretty quickly. But last year isn't really a fair judge because it was all through Zoom, so it took longer. But I mean, maybe 9 to 12, and there'd be a break, 9 to 1, maybe. Yeah, well,
If it
No
goes
one-
according to plan,
if it goes according to plan,
I'm figuring probably 9 to 12. Because there's gonna be discussion over the SAU. costs
yeah, there's
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah.
gonna be discussion there,
And
and,
how that's all gonna work
yeah,
and what. The way I've got it scheduled is the town is all day on the first Saturday before, next Saturday. The 3 districts that we also have, we do in the afternoon of the school meeting day, because typically the school doesn't
take as
take
long.
anywhere near as long as the town.
Yeah, it's weird, it's a bigger budget, but, and there's even, I think, more pages, but it's less sections and it's, you know, it just goes faster.
We're only listening to you, but we're not listening to each department.
Yeah, there's
Right.
that,
This
yeah.
school.
Right.
Okay, so that's what's coming up. Closing public comment, either of you,
I'm glad I came.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
I'll be short, well, that's true.
Great.
Good, awesome. And no board member, so we do have a need for non-public, so
So we're being kicked out.
yeah. So I don't,
Back in high school.
Yes.
I don't think there'll be any votes, so we'll probably turn off the live stream and adjourn from there. I know, what do I need to go in under? Let me remember what I need to go in, hold on. Okay, I think I'm gonna be C, and then contracts would be K.
In a.
Okay,
See
so
you
go on.
all next time.
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
See you on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you.
All right, so I make a motion to go in non-public under RSA 91A 32 sections A, C, and K.
Second.
Seconded by Sarah Carey. Brian Winslow is a yes. Amanda Roy,
Yes.
Sarah Carey,
Yes.
and Jennifer Fry.
Yes.
Okay, so at 7:56, going into non-public.